I'm gonna carve 3 life-size sculptures in just 17 days for the best client I've ever had. And while I do this, I'm gonna tell you the bizarre story of the worst client ever. This video is brought to you by Squarespace. This is gonna be my 10th year carving mascots for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl. And this year, it's gonna be a little bit different than the previous years. And if you guys are new to my channel, hi, I'm Blake. I'm a sculptor and I get hired by Goodyear Tires to create both competing teams' mascots for the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, all out of Goodyear tires. This year we actually have a play-in game for the Cotton Bowl. So Texas A&M will take on Miami and the winner of that game will face Ohio State for the Cotton Bowl. I'm actually going to sculpt both teams' play-in games mascots because once they play, I'll only have 4 days to complete the winning team's mascot. And the only way for me to do this successfully is to get a head start and sculpt both mascots' forms beforehand. As soon as the teams are announced, I get straight to work, and I start by hiring my talented friend Laura, who creates 3D renderings of the mascots so I can use them as templates for my sculptures. I basically just have a projector and I blow them up to the size I want, and then I start welding the armature. And while I weld up this frame for Miami, let me tell you the wild story of the worst client I've ever had. I was commissioned by a client, and I don't really want to use his real name, so let's just call him Jerry. Jerry reached out to me with a very specific request. He owned a stuffed swan and wanted to replicate it as a wooden epoxy sculpture. Simple enough, I thought, until I saw the reference photo. And I actually have that photo with me, and I'm going to show you guys, but first I need to tell you about the gamble I'm about to take on this project. All right, this could quite possibly be the stupidest thing I've ever done. I am taking a huge gamble with only 17 days to make these sculptures. First, let me show you how I normally do these sculptures. I will take pink insulation foam. These come in big 4x8 sheets, and I'll laminate them all together and then start carving. This is an extremely time-consuming process. There's probably about 95% of that huge form that I glue up will be waste, and it takes time to carve that all away. Well, I have stumbled upon product, and it's all because of one person, John Layman. If you haven't seen this guy already, this is the best sculptor I've ever seen. Anyways, I got to picking his brain. He told me about this 2-part spray foam that cures in 2 minutes. So, if this works, good job, John. And if it doesn't, screw you, John Layman. This is all your fault. Let's get to it.
Cracks in the sidewalk, growing in silence, wearing your yellow crown. Hey, little dandelion, they kicked you for no reason. Gather up your pieces, still you hold your ground. Hey, little dandelion.
John, you're my little dandelion. If this thing doesn't work, I'm gonna blow you away. Oh, wait a minute. That sounds a little weird. Hey, little dandelion.
Quiet. Hey, little dandelion. Kicked along the blacktop, trying to pump your head. Another outcast, the blast in gym class, always getting pushed around.
Yeah, John, it works! It works, buddy! Oh, what a guy! What a guy!
Hey, little dandelion, count it out, but all night.
This foam is an absolute game changer. It's carvable within 2 minutes after spraying. If I mess up, I just spray a little more. Right here, I'm actually spraying the hat for Miami. He's got a goofy little hat. If I mess up, or if there are any voids in the foam, just put on another nozzle and spray some more foam. This stuff is an absolute game changer for me. First battle wound, just simply picking up the knife on the table. It's a very sharp knife. So this is going to be interesting carving for the next week, but all part of it. Let's go clean it up. You're going to be seeing my assistant Kenny here throughout this video, and Kenny was an amazing help during this project. He is part of the reason why this was able to be accomplished in only 17 days. And funny enough, one of the most time-saving aspects of having an assistant is holding the sculpture in place as I'm carving it. If I didn't have him to hold it, I would actually have to set up a clamp system to hold these sculptures in place as I'm carving, especially with the Sawzall and all that vibration. So things you just don't think about take a lot of time when you're by yourself. So Kenny is an amazing addition to my team for this project. All right, now let's get back to this Swan sculpture and the worst client I've ever had. So he sent me a picture of his stuffed swan, and I will show it to you right here. When I think swan, I think a long, elegant neck extending and curving up around the body. So I explained to Jerry that the pose seemed a little more like a duck and less like a swan, especially if it was going to be carved out of wood and epoxy, because it's not going to end up being white like a swan. Getting back to the Miami sculpture here, the beak was probably the hardest part on this sculpture, and I was kind of struggling with how to do this right, because when you spray the foam vertical, it falls off. And I needed to find a way to foam the outside and the inside portion of this beak. So I thought, you know what, let's call someone for some advice. What's up?
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Nothing, I'm just hanging out in the shop making stuff.
Okay, so the beak, right? And I have this aluminum tape. Whenever I spray vertical, it's just gonna fall right off this. And I need foam on both sides of this.
Yes.
What are you thinking there?
Is he too heavy just to lay down?
So that was what I was thinking.
Yes, and then where you have that mark around where his beak is gonna go in,
Yeah.
through the face,
Yep.
you can put tinfoil all over the head and take an X-Acto knife, and cut around where your beak goes. So when you blow the foam there, you can grab that tinfoil and it peels right off the face.
Nice. Yes, I will definitely do that.
Yeah.
Sweet.
He's looking good, man.
We just had a lunch break. We watched your alien video again. So awesome, dude.
That's how big it is.
That is so cool. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This foam right here is an absolute game changer. So
It's so good.
You
I'm
are-
glad you liked it, man.
you're the man.
I can't wait to see him.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
I'll see you.
Bye. All right, let's get to finishing this beak. You're probably wondering, why are there no hands on this sculpture? And I have a couple of reasons for that. Number one, hands are just very time consuming to actually carve. I'm actually gonna cast either my hand or Kenny's hand, and it'll take me about half the time to have a completed hand. Reason number two, this sculpture, as well as Ohio State, is actually gonna have football gloves over the hands, so the material does not matter. And lastly, and most importantly for Miami is gonna have the iconic U right in front of the head. And that beak protrudes out to where there's gonna be very small gap in between that beak and the hands. And if I were to do the hands now, I'm not gonna be able to get a tool to the underside of the beak to secure the tires to. So this sculpture is pretty much roughed out of foam. I'm gonna go ahead and send it to fiberglassing, and then we're on to the next sculpture. Hey guys, I have a goal of reaching 1 million subscribers. I am a long ways away from that right now, but each and every one of you can help me reach my goal. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Thanks, guys. All right, now we're on to Ohio State. And remember, Ohio State is the only team that is for sure going to be in the Cotton Bowl. Miami and Texas A&M have that play-in game to see who's going to take that second spot. And just like the Miami sculpture, I'm hiring Laura here to make beautiful 3D renderings of the sculpture so I have great templates to work off of. And then it's pretty much the same process as the first one. I'm going to weld a frame, blow some foam, and start carving. All right, back to Jerry. So he wanted a swan similar to the stuffed swan he had, just out of wood and epoxy. I had my reservations, but if it's what he wants, that's what I'm gonna do for him. So over the next couple weeks, we collaborated closely. Materials, wood species, epoxy color, finish. We landed on a price and everything felt smooth. For my sculptures, I require a 50% payment up front and the remaining 50% upon completion. Jerry actually paid the first half on time, no questions asked, and it was smooth sailing from my standpoint. So I went ahead and got started on the swan. This swan ended up being one of the first major wooden epoxy sculptures I've ever done. What I thought was going to be weeks turned into over a month of pouring epoxy, carving, shaping, sanding, and refining. And when it was finally done, I stepped back and I thought this was the best sculpture I've ever created. And I actually have a video on it. It is the most viewed video I've ever done, which is pretty ironic really. But if you guys want to check that out, I will put a link in the description and you can check it out after this video. All right, let's get back to Ohio State build. Okay, we have a little bit of an issue here. Take a look at the renderings we have. You see how the head is very oval? Go ahead and look at what we have here. It's way too circular and it's a little too high on the body. So that means the hat is gonna get scrapped. And I think the easiest way for this to actually work is to just decapitate him. And that'll also allow me to really carve the shoulders because my tools can't really get into these tight places. So let's get to the guillotine. It's definitely more oval already. I think that makes sense. Turns out I actually didn't have to, poor old Brutus there, because once I took that hat off, it really started to become more oval, just with a little more shaping, and just wasn't necessary to hurt that poor nut. I think it's a nut. Buckeyes are nuts, right? Pretty sure a buckeye is a type of nut. All right, let's get back to it. Ohio State is done and off to fiberglassing. And speaking of fiberglassing, the guys spend around 2 days per sculpture fiberglassing. So for me, as soon as I get done with the foam form, I send it right to them so they can work on that while I work on the next one and then switch. And that means I am on to the final sculpture, Texas A&M. They have a real-life dog mascot, and it is a rough collie. It's basically the Lassie dog, and I'm gonna try and sculpt this thing as realistic as possible using Laura's great 3D renderings as templates. All right, so where we left off with Jerry, I finished the Swan. I was super happy with it. I think it looked remarkably close to the reference picture he sent me. And I was just genuinely happy with how it turned out. So I sent Jerry the final pictures. And he seemed just not very excited about them. Just really short with his responses. You know, I'm always nervous in the client's reaction. Like, what if they don't like it? You know, what if they were expecting something else? But for this one, I wasn't that nervous because I thought I nailed it. So when he came back and was just super short, I felt a little weird about this situation. And rightfully so, because it gets weird. All right, we just ordered some lunch. It's 10 minutes away, and I think it's a pretty fun opportunity to see how much we can do in 10 minutes with this carving. So 10 minutes are on the clock. Let's see how much we can do. Good. Once you make the cuts of the legs, it really starts to become a dog. And those are some very easy cuts because you know there's just huge muscle groups here and here. So you're always safe cutting a lot off kind of that midsection there. So overall, I'm pretty happy with 10 minutes there. Oh, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? It looks like a dog. All right, while I start refining the shape of Texas A&M, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace for over 5 years now and love the easy-to-use templates that look professional and are super intuitive. So intuitive, I might add, that they are now introducing Design Intelligence, which uses AI technology to unlock your creative potential. I've been using the online store of Squarespace to sell sculptures, merch, and cutting boards, and I love how you can just showcase products and add or subtract new products super easily. So if you're interested, head on over to the link in my description or use this QR code to save 10% on your first website domain. Thanks, Squarespace. Now let's get back to the build. So I sent Jerry a follow-up email saying, you know, this is pretty much spot on from what we agreed upon in the contract. This is very similar to your stuffed Swan. I'm ready to get my 50% payment and crate and ship this sculpture to you. So, you know, send me your address, send me the final payment, and we'll go from there. And Jerry decided to ghost me. Days went by, a week went by, I sent him a follow-up email. Another week went by, nothing. Finally, after 2 or 3 weeks, I was just fed up and I sent him a firm email saying, Jerry, this is exactly what you wanted. We have a contract. Pay me my 50% and I will send you your sculpture. And sure enough, after that, I did get a response, but it was not what I was expecting. Carving this dog is way harder than I anticipated. Normally, when I'm carving an animal, it's just a generic animal. You know, I do a rhino or a moose or an elephant, but here I'm not only doing a dog, I'm doing a specific type of dog. This is a rough collie, and the characteristics that stick out in this dog is a very thin snout, like freakishly thin. And right now it's just hard for me to get this thing looking like a rough collie. This is much larger than a life-size rough collie. It is kind of looking more like a German Shepherd or a wolf or a Malinois, you know, something like that. So really got to thin out this snout, and hopefully this thing looks like Texas A&M's mascot when we're all done. We're using aluminum foil tape to shield off the foam from the fiberglass resin. Normally the foam I use dissolves when it comes into contact with the foam. However, this foam actually doesn't do that, but the fiberglassers told us that the open pores in this foam actually soak up a ton of extra resin, which makes it not only more expensive, but much heavier. So it would save a lot of money, time, and weight on these final sculptures.
Who's a good boy?
That looked good. These sculptures are actually two separate parts. There's doing the foam carving and the steel armature and then the fiberglassing. And then part 2, laying on the tires, doing all the detailed work, the painting, the finishing. Right now, we're done with all the foam work, which I'm relieved. But we are no more than halfway there right now, and we have a ton of work to do. Right now, we know for certain that Ohio State is in the Cotton Bowl. So we're gonna put all our effort into Ohio State right now. So the first line of business is let's make a mold of Kenny's hands.
Nice.
Ta-da!
The hand model.
I get an A+.
A+. Look at that hand. Like Cinderella. Glove fits. Dude, that looks good. Get it. And I completely forgot about Brutus's towel. Luckily for me, this thing is all fiberglass and I could just get a piece of wood and add that to the fiberglass to then make the towel for Brutus. But then I got to thinking about Brutus and what that big nut would want as a towel material, and I think the only thing that big old nut would want is just another nut. Walnut. So the towel's all squared away and I have a little bit of a confession to make. I don't have just 17 days to make these sculptures because I spent a couple weeks doing nothing but cutting tires before the teams were even announced. All right, now that that's off my chest, let's get to applying these tires. So Jerry finally answers my email, and it's not what I was expecting. Jerry basically told me that this swan was a gift for his wife, and they are now separating. And he is asking for a full refund. And this was completely uncharted territory for me. This wasn't a one-off shelf item. This sculpture existed only because Jerry wanted this exact swan in this exact pose based on his stuffed animal. So I was torn. I could go after him, get my 50%, and then still have a swan, or I guess I would have to probably send it to him. Or I could give him his payment back and try and sell it. So I thought for a couple days, and I ended up kind of compromising in the middle. I told Jerry I would list the swan for sale on my site, and if it sells, I will give him back his 50%. We're now getting into the fun part of the sculptures for me. I love all these little details. Yes, they're very time consuming, but so rewarding once you put them on and everything just starts to come together. All right, I want to see if you guys could help me out. I've done this mascot for 4 years now, and there's this little thing in his lip, and I don't know what it is, but it's on the real mascot, and I don't know. Is it a dip? Has it got a little lipper in there? I don't know, but maybe one of you guys know. Maybe we have some Ohio State alums. Let me know what this is. Okay, one more confession. I did make both the pedestals about a month ago, so that doesn't count into these 17 days, but I don't think you guys really care. What you guys really care about is Jerry, so let's get back to Jerry. So I ended up compromising. I told Jerry I would list the Swan for sale, and if it sold, I would give him the full amount from the sale. And I feel like this is more than fair. Weeks went by, months went by, still no serious buyers. There was a ton of interest. At the time, the video was actually doing very well, so I was getting a ton of interest from people that were just interested in the video, but no serious buyers. So I updated Jerry and suggested something what I thought was pretty reasonable. Let's just lower the price. And that's when Jerry told me how he truly felt about this Swan. He said the epoxy made it look trashy and it was just a bad sculpture and that nobody would buy it. And honestly, I'm starting to figure out why his wife left him. Switching over to the build really quick, I'm having issues with the clear coat. It's only 45 degrees out and I'm having issues with it curing on this sculpture. So instead of wasting the whole day, we're actually gonna switch gears and start building the crate for this sculpture because crate building, believe it or not, is a full day of work. All right, back to Jerry. So I gave it a couple days, talked to my dad, my wife, told friends and family about the situation, and the majority of them said, just don't even respond to this guy. Like, you've done everything you could do. Just leave it alone, it's done. Just never respond to him again. So that's what I did. I just didn't email him back. And from that point on, every couple weeks like clockwork, I'd receive another angry email. Where's my money? Why hasn't it sold? I'm gonna get my lawyer. And I just wouldn't respond. That is, until I got an email from a guy named Sohel. All right, it's the next day, the sun is finally out. Seems like it's been weeks since the sun's been out, and we are finally ready to clear coat this thing. So Ohio State is completely done. Brutus is looking great, and now we have to sit around and wait for the Texas A&M and Miami game to see what sculpture we have next. The game's not for another 4 hours. We got finished a little bit early. I have everything done that I could possibly get done to prepare myself for this next sculpture. We only have 4 days to do it, and I'm not someone that could just sit around and twiddle my thumbs or just hang out. I can't do that. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna show you guys something that has brought me a lot of joy in my college days. And I'm gonna show you guys how to make it. This might be a bad idea, but it's pretty cool. Let's check it out. Okay, here's what you need. Some tape, a piece of paper, a wire hanger, and a PVC pipe. Step 1, cut a piece of paper. I'm gonna cut this in half, and then I'm gonna cut little squares. We're gonna take the corners to make a cone, okay? We're just gonna tape it. Just making a cone here, that's it. Step number 2, you have your standard wire hanger. We are going to make a cut, not measuring here. I'm gonna cut a couple of these because I wanna make a couple. Roughly 5 inches, we have your coat hanger. just a standard wire. Take the end of your PVC pipe. We're gonna put the cone in there. Now we're just gonna trace. We're just gonna cut that. Get the wire, feed it through there. We're gonna tape the metal and then work the tape all the way up. Gonna cut this off, and this is it. We are officially done. Now let me show you how this works. Gonna pop it in. It should fit snugly. It shouldn't be loose enough to where if I put this vertical, it should still stay. It's in there pretty good. Here we go, shot number 1. Oh man, look at that. A little low, but went all the way through. All right, I'm gonna make a couple more of these and then show you guys what this thing's actually capable of. Look at this. I went through one of them. Wow. I'm shooting across the pond over there about 30 feet away. Did I get it? Oh yeah. All right, here are the rules. Be safe, have fun, don't shoot anyone, unless you have any baby carrots. If you have baby carrots, you could actually shave them down a little bit so they fit perfectly in there. Nail your friends. All right, let's go watch some football games.
Oh! No way, dude. That's game.
Texas A&M had a chance to win the game with only 24 seconds left on the clock, but threw an interception in the end zone, and that means Miami is advancing to the Cotton Bowl.
Let's go start Miami.
A lot of you probably have the same question as me. What am I going to do with that Texas A&M sculpture? And honestly, I just have no idea. So if you guys have a good idea on what I could do with this sculpture, let me know down in the comments. All right, let's get right to work on Miami. We only have 4 days. Actually, we only have 3 days because one of those days is building the crate and putting them in the crate. And that is for sure a full day event. So 3 days, we need to finish this sculpture. Let's get to it. So I got an email from a guy named Sohel, and he was interested in buying the Swan. Very interested, but also very suspicious. And understandably, because this was a weird situation, and just put yourself in his shoes and imagine hearing this pitch. This sculpture was commissioned, but the buyer no longer wants it, so I'm reselling it at a discount. And by the way, the money you pay me, I'm just gonna send to the original person who commissioned me for this sculpture. I mean, I might as well have just added that I'm a Nigerian prince as well and my family's in trouble. To his credit, Sohel did his homework. We talked, and a lot. Phone calls, emails, we did FaceTime videos with the sculpture showing him it in basically every angle. He asked smart questions, reasonable questions, and eventually he decided this wasn't a scam, just a very strange situation. All right, jumping back to the Miami sculpture real quick. This sculpture is very unique. The actual mascot is unique. It's a bird, but it seems to have fur instead of feathers. It's very interesting. And that means instead of doing big shreds of tire, we have to actually cut hundreds of these fur-like little shreds of tires to layer on the sculpture. Huge shout out to Kenny and Michael for cutting these shreds for 2 full days. Sohel bought the Swan, and just like that, the saga ended. Jerry got his money back, I never heard from him again, and Sohel got a sculpture he genuinely loved. And one of the best parts about this whole story is that Sohel remains one of the best clients I've ever had. He actually commissioned another sculpture, this hummingbird right here, from me, and he jokingly still gives me updates about his life, especially his relationship with his wife, and that they're still on good terms. So the worst client I've ever had kind of led me to one of the best clients I've ever had. Thanks, Jerry. All right, let's finish up this Miami sculpture, get it shipped off to the Cotton Bowl. I can't thank everyone enough who helped me make these sculptures possible in only 17 days. I was pretty much living in the shop and only came out to eat and occasionally take a shower. Luckily, my kids still know who I am, thanks to my wife, who took over all parenting responsibilities during that time. Thank you all the guys over at Mobile Fiberglassing, Michael across the street, and huge shout out to Kenny. Can we get some comments for Kenny down here? Let's show Kenny some love. Thanks, Kenny. This would not be possible without your hard work. I also want to thank Goodyear Tires and the Cotton Bowl for trusting me over 10 years to complete these sculptures. Thanks, guys. And thank you guys for watching this video and just enjoying watching the process of these sculptures come together. It's because of you guys that I'm fortunate enough to do this for a living. So thank you guys so much. This was a little bit tricky. I used my laser to cut this piece of acrylic for the Hurricanes text, but it ended up shattering when I drove in pin nails. But luckily, we were able to use some CA glue and fix it. And also, let me know what you think about this new voiceover situation I got going on here. If you're new to the channel, I don't normally go in front of the camera and talk to you guys. Normally, it's just a voiceover behind the scenes. So let me know which one you guys like better. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It'll really help me out on my goal to reaching 1 million subscribers. All right, all we have left is the clear coat, the final crating, and we are done. All right, let's check out the final reveal. If you like this video, YouTube thinks you're gonna like this video too.